Keep it clean. What am I wearing?
I meant like lipstick or did I do my makeup or anything like that?
That's pandemic dating talk. So what are you wearing tonight?
Hey John, nice meeting you. Michael Udine. I have a lot of friends over at Ultimate.
Nice meeting you as well.
I'm sorry we weren't able to get everybody together on the same day and time when we spoke, but we had a good conversation this week and last week with everybody. And again, thank you for your Welcome to today's virtual event, The State of Innovation in South Florida. We have a number of people watching from all over the world, as far as Istanbul, Turkey. Before we get into a discussion with our panelists, I would like to take an opportunity to provide an overview of the Alan B. Levan NSU Broward Center of Innovation. The Levan Center is a public-private partnership between Nova Southeastern University and Broward County. We are building an economic and education development engine that is an opportunity gateway for Greater Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, and South Florida with local, regional, national, and international impact. One of our goals is to better link the South Florida innovation ecosystem by offering customized programs, events, and wraparound services to support the founder's journey from birth of an idea through successful exit of a company. Our 3 themes include innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship. Our 4 pillars include ideate, incubate, accelerate, and post-accelerate. Our 6 outcomes include breakthrough ideation, new technologies, talent skills pipeline, new jobs, company formation, and scaling of early stage and young startup companies. We are launching a purpose-built 54,000 square foot facility in Fort Lauderdale, now under construction, and we look forward to opening in the summer of 2021. Details of our progress can be found on our website at nova.edu/innovation. It should not come as a surprise to anyone that South Florida is shining in the national press, with Miami being the headliner, with a particular focus on Miami as the new tech hub. Recent headlines about Miami being open for business as a tech hub have infiltrated the paper press and social media channels, especially Twitter. The topic has captured the interest of entrepreneurs, industry, academia, government, and investors, often filled with mixed opinions. There is no new movement that has been more publicly presented in recent weeks and months as South Florida, and the excitement continues to build, but it's also causing some debate and some controversial viewpoints. Is it just hype? Is it real? Is it somewhere in between? What is the definition of Miami, and are we really talking about Miami or South Florida as an ecosystem? Some have referred to Miami and South Florida as Silicon Valley of the West, spurring numerous controversial discussions. In South Florida, on the verge of a new movement around innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship, are the big names relocating to Miami or South Florida, and what impact are they actually having? What do recent trends mean to South Florida in terms of challenges, opportunities, and strategies? Today's star-studded panel will address the state of innovation in South Florida, and I'm so excited to hear what is presented here today. My hope is that our listening audience walks away from this discussion with a much better understanding of the current state of innovation in South Florida and what it means for tomorrow, especially as it relates to a united tech corridor. Now that the foundation has been set, I am so excited to introduce today's amazing panel. Welcome Broward County's Vice Mayor, Michael Udine, Xendoo's CEO, Lillian Roberts, UKG's CTO, John Machado, and Cyndx's founder and CEO, Jim McVeigh. For our panelists, we will start our fireside chat. Feel free to provide a short interview or overview of your organization as we begin. And now I'd like to get into some of the panel questions, and this will be more of a fireside chat rather than just a basic Q&A. There's a lot of buzz around innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship across the nation, resulting in emerging opportunities at an accelerated pace, and South Florida is no exception. I would like to jump right into the meat of today's topic and get your perspective on the state of innovation in South Florida. I might be opening Pandora's box, but I think it's important to understand from each of your viewpoints, since you represent government, the startup environment, corporate America, and the new to market perspective. With that said, Vice Mayor Udine, would you like to respond to that?
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for having me. Thank you to my fellow panelists, and thank you to the NSU Innovation Academy for setting this up. I think this is a great program as we look forward to the full opening of the facility sometime later on this summer. I'm glad that Broward County is a part of it with you and look forward to partnering with you. I think that to open it up, my role as I see it as a person in government in this situation is to make the South Florida landscape as welcoming as possible to startup businesses, tech startup, fintechs, reloads that are coming down here, and make everything that they think of when they look at how government should act as transparent, welcoming, and really setting the stage to seeing these companies grow here, bring their jobs here, and contribute to the communities that they become a part of as they scale up. And with that, it requires us to, work in collaboration with the private sector on talent, affordable housing, transportation, culture, because the employees and the people that are coming here for a certain lifestyle and a certain cultural lifestyle. And it's important that we do what we can in government to make sure that is as welcoming as possible. I'm starting to hear from different tech people from around the country that they like what's happening in the South Florida region. And yes, I believe it is a region, even though they keep using the word Miami. They like what's happening as the welcoming nature of the South Florida region. So I'm excited to hear from the rest of the panel because they're really boots on the ground. So I can't wait to listen to this entire program. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Greatly appreciate that from the government perspective, and thank you for your support of promoting the South Florida innovation ecosystem. I'd like to turn that over to Lillian for your response, please.
Thank you, John. And I echo Michael Udine that, grateful to be on this panel with you. It's amazing to see what NSU is doing for our community and for all parts of the ecosystem, for the kids that are growing up here that are going to have this opportunity to be able to take ideation and build companies out. For me, the point that we're at right now, when I look at South Florida, and I'm born and raised native of South Florida, is that we're at a groundswell. You feel it, you feel the rumble happening underneath us all. It's absolutely amazing. And, a lot of people think that this is happening overnight, but it's been through the hard work of people like Vice Mayor Udine, as well as Venture Cafe, Venture Hive, Knight Foundation, Emerge, and all of the other ecosystem partners that have been developing this for a long time. As a startup that is past product market fit and into the early stages of scale in a fintech space, it is all of our responsibility to maximize this opportunity that we have for South Florida and for the state of Florida, from government through educational, through startups, through the access to capital. We all play a part in what South Florida will become. So it's exciting to be here today. Thank you again.
And I appreciate you being able to outline all of the other stakeholders just as examples, because it's truly all of the stakeholders that are connecting and improving this ecosystem as we move forward to act as one. John Machado, can I turn it over to you, please?
Yes, good morning, and I echo. Thank you for having the opportunity to be on this panel, and I also am looking forward to hearing more from the Vice Mayor and others on the panel. UKG, formerly Ultimate Software, and Kronos together. Ultimate Software has been in South Florida tech for over 30 years. And so I do echo that there is a groundswell. I also echo that it does feel different. I'm also a Florida native, born and raised, and worked with many leaders here in South Florida over the years as a technologist. So I've seen waves of I'll call it somewhat hype in the past, but I do think that it is a bit different this time. First and foremost, the money, the capital that matters is real, and that's one of the most important things. But also with that, I do think we can learn a lot from the past. The issues that the Vice Mayor brought up about transportation, other areas, they've been an issue, quite honestly, for handling growth here in South Florida for a long time. So I do think that we've got a great opportunity, because that culture also that the Vice Mayor talked about, I think that is one of the new things that has changed and is forming innovation as well. So it's not just the new inflow of capital. It is the fact that South Florida has always been a diverse place with an incredible culture. And I think other areas are starting to recognize that. And honestly, this next generation of innovation is really about people rethinking things. And the more diverse people you have and the more diverse culture you have, it gives you a better opportunity to innovate. And that's something I think that's almost priceless in this area. And the last thing I'll just add is brought up. We also have to come together more. Historically, the Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, i.e. Miami and its extended areas to the rest of the country is something that is real. And I do think, though, that for South Florida to be successful, it's great that the name of Miami is so well known everywhere, but the resources and the companies and the capital is spread throughout all of South. I do think if we take advantage of the South Florida movement, I really am excited about the opportunity in front of us.
So I appreciate the words that the panels presented so far. There's a definite groundswell. We're rethinking, we're diversifying culture, we need to come together more. And I think those are great themes that follow into the other part of our discussion. I wanted to have Jim also respond. I know we're having a technical glitch with connectivity, so I don't think Jim is able to hear us right this very moment. And we'll just confirm that. If not, then I'm going to move into the next question. So, okay, so we're going to get Jim reconnected again. There's a network issue apparently. Given the research that I've done to date, innovation leads to new technologies and successful tech hubs. As part of the required infrastructure needed to be successful in South Florida, access to talent and funding are key ingredients. Do you agree or disagree that there is an abundance of talent in South Florida, but a lack of qualified credential talent to support emerging industries and occupations, particularly in the field of technology? And I know, Lillian, we had a great discussion the other day just about talent and technology, so I think it'd be great if you could lead the response to that question off.
Thank you, John. And it's a tough question, right? Because nobody wants to think that they don't have the talent in their backyard, and it's about lived experience. And I spent four months out in Silicon Valley back in 2018, and what a difference it is if you grew up there versus growing up here. So South Florida is a tremendous opportunity to live a great life, but we haven't been able to grow the people to have that lived experience of the lens of how fast you have to move when you're a scaling startup, and what are the things that you have to constantly be fine-tuning and sharpening your skills on understanding what you don't know. And it's easy for people in the rest of the country to just think, oh, this is my job and that's it, and they don't stretch themselves. And out in SF, it is a constant culture of stretching yourself, of having those conversations that you're not the smartest person in the room, and that there is a lot of things that you don't know, and that you can solve problems, that it's not that, oh, well, we've always done it this way. It's how do we need to do it? And how do we figure that out, put technology to it? So we have a lot of wonderful people in South Florida, wouldn't trade them for anything. And we need to now get them provide them the opportunity to step up and to run at the speed that you must run at when you are a technology hub. The world changes fast. If you're not the lead dog, the scenery doesn't change, right? So let's all be lead dogs. How do we help our people be lead dogs? So no, we do not have all the talent we need right now.
Great, and thank you. I appreciate that. And I'll have a commentary once we get to the end of this question that may be a little bit controversial, but I think it's a great debatable challenge that we need to address. John, what is your response to that?
Yeah, I in theory, I agree. In that there definitely is a lot of talent that leaves South Florida as soon as that they finish the great education they get. That's always improving, quite frankly, here in Florida, both on the private and public universities. The challenge is they get scooped up and they get taken away in many ways. That's the biggest area that we fight with Silicon Valley is I try to get them actually in high school now to tell them you don't need to leave because that's what happens. They come in and they tell an incredible story about the opportunity that was just referenced, right? Because that is the difference of what we have not had enough of, is a chance to actually get the reps in a world of, extreme growth and, everything at scale. And the fact that to get ahead, the level of effort and work schedules are not normal 9 to 5. They're potentially 12, 14 hours a day. And also, I'll also say the culture of what it means to work is different as well. And I think as if you can bring that, we've proven, and Cyndx has proven, there are other tech companies here in South Florida that have proven that you can take and provide an environment to give that talent some of those reps and some of that direction, and you can be successful. But on a whole, in terms of as a region, or being able to go outside and replace some of those great people that you have in there, we do not have enough to compete, quite honestly, with an Austin or San Francisco Valley or New York. Now, post-COVID, it's potentially that changes, as I'm sure we'll talk about that later. I am definitely influx of the people that have gone away that are coming back, that have gotten that experience. So it is potentially that right now we don't, but it could be fortuitous to us that we might in the future, if we take advantage, have a chance to kind of rectify that. So.
Great, I appreciate that. Vice Mayor, what are your thoughts on that?
I would just echo what was said. I mean, we do have 20 colleges and universities within the 3 counties. We do pump out a diverse group of professionals. Like Lil had mentioned, a lot of them leave once they get their degrees down here. They scatter to other parts of the country because they don't think that there's the cluster and the and just the sheer numbers of what needs to be down here. We have to do a better job selling this area to those people so that they stay here, so that they graduate here, they start out in high school, we get them through college and whatever. And like Lil had mentioned yesterday or the other day on our earlier call, make sure that we're training them in the local colleges and universities with the skill set that's needed by these startup companies, including the soft skills that they need, the day-to-day work ethic type skills that they need, anything that we need to do to get them ready for what they're looking at. This may not be a traditional 4-year degree where they're in every different thing. There are different skill sets. We need to match the skill sets with that. We're talking about that on the county commission all the time with apprenticeship type programs, with the support of different incubators, just like this one, and different things as we move forward. And I think we need to continue to do that. We do have the people here. The people want to be here for whatever reason. Post-COVID, they definitely want to be here. And this is a good time for us to capitalize, as was mentioned.
Great, I appreciate that too. Jim McVeigh from Cyndx, I know that we had a connectivity issue, and I just want to repeat the question so that you have an opportunity. I know that you're in the process of relocating. You got it? Okay, so if you'd like to respond.
And look, and to address what was said a little bit earlier, I think you are going to see a tectonic shift towards South Florida, driven by a couple of things. One, absolutely the capital formation that's happening down here that will support the investments into the innovation is critical. Two, the welcoming and open environment from a business perspective, whether it's taxes or infrastructure or just creating the environment for people to want to come here is pretty significant. We had significant operations both in California and New York, and we're migrating that 50% of that down to South Florida for those exact reasons. And I think what you will see with that for our company, for example, is an AI big data fintech company that has many of the high types of skill sets that you all were just talking about. We will be relocating those employees down to South Florida. And we will create apprenticeships. We will bring a lot of people in from the universities and train them on what they need to know. So you will see a groundswell, I think, on the technology side. I was back in Silicon Valley back in 2000 when you saw the partnership between government capital and the startup community incubate and really create what is now Silicon Valley and that great economic engine. I see the same seedlings happening today. And again, I think at the end of the day, what technology has taught us over the last year is people can work from a lot of different locations, and they are going to move with their feet to the place they want to be. And so, again, I think over the next 10 years, you're going to see a shift down here that is going to be, really, really exciting to be a part of.
And I appreciate that. And thank you all for your responses. And I wrote down a number of quotes that I may end up repeating later on, but there's some real key buzzwords that you're all using that I think is great. One of the areas that I spend a lot of my time focusing on is the disconnection often between academia and industry, and that we need to close the gap so that we're collaboratively working together so that we are supporting these emerging industries and these emerging occupations that have these new types of credentials that may not traditionally have come out of academic institutions. And the landscape of academia is changing. And you can see annually just the number of closures of colleges and universities that aren't being innovative or aren't thinking as entrepreneurs and co-investing with industry and industry co-investing with industry. So I think there's a huge opportunity here in South Florida with the presence of our entire education system from K through 12 through the colleges, through the universities, public and private, that we create these programs at an accelerated pace. And I know that apprenticeship has been used twice in our conversation so far, and there was a time when apprenticeship was a kind of a sexy industry or track, if you will, and then it sort of disappeared and became very much affiliated with blue collar trades. And in reality, apprenticeship is now a great buzzword again because it provides that on-the-job training, that accelerated learning. It gives those credentials and skills that industry needs and provides for a valuable workforce at an accelerated pace. So I think the changing landscape is starting to happen, but we may have to accelerate that and increase the connection between industry and education as a whole. Another thing I'd like to talk about now is capital, and access to capital is very important for innovation. And if South Florida seeks to be a designated tech hub, do you agree or disagree access to capital, whether it be love money, angel investors, venture capital, or institutional financing, is plentiful or lacking? What does the current environment look like, and what do we do as a single South Florida innovation ecosystem in terms of making sure that we're all contributing towards success? I'd like to start with John Machado, please.
Sure. I definitely see that the ability to raise and leverage capital, as has already been mentioned, is definitely at a high and growing. And every week you read about more PE firms and others that want to come to South Florida and create either incubation centers or invest in smaller companies, or even partner with some of us already owned by PE to look at opportunities. So definitely the phones are hotter than ever in that. Also a lot of opportunity to create incubation for some of us larger companies that are looking for the ability to invest early and leverage some of our own capital. Just the opportunities are there more than it's been in a very long time. I'd say probably since the .com days. And so that's very exciting. So I would say that thesis is correct, at least from what I see. And I think that's a very advantageous thing that's in front of us. But what I'm still yet to see, and that'll be part of where this goes, is the investment to create, incubate, and then take away, or is it to create and keep? And that's something that, as Jim was talking about, what happened back in the early 2000 era out in San Francisco, or the Valley area, and we're seeing that in Austin. It's also this work to make sure that although the capital comes, that it stays, and that you find a way that as these companies grow and may be acquired and maybe sold again and put through there, but it's done in the lens of, because we want to have a part of that community, that area. So just, we've done it ourselves. We've bought startups and other companies just to have a point of presence in the Valley or in San Francisco or in Toronto, as an example. So it'd be really interesting to see does that capital not just come in, but does it stay? Does it allow it to grow and flourish and kind of grow long term?
Yeah, I think you bring up an extremely important topic. And earlier, the prior question, we were talking about talent, and I wrote down some key words about recruit and sustain and train and retain the talent. But I think the same thing goes for the funding sources. And I think we have to come up with better mechanisms or strategies to be able to make sure that that money stays close by, and those inventions and those commercialized product services, et cetera, are localized and not exported. Although there's a time and place for all of that. Vice Mayor, do you have a response to that?
I agree with what John just said, almost 100%. I think that the key is, as people, in the past we were thought of as a region, and I believe what you said in the beginning. I believe this is a regional issue. I don't believe this is just a Miami issue. I tell people Miami is more of a theory than a city when we talk about, this issue. And I always bring up Xendoo and Lil when I mention that, because if you read every article about, and it can be any one of these ones that you're reading now about the startup, the funding, the tech gateway, the headline always says Miami in the title, and I understand that. But when you look at the companies that are in the body of the articles, they're almost at least 50 to 60% Broward and Palm Beach County. So it's a region that's really looking to excel here. In the past, I think we've had a reputation in South Florida as a place where the money comes to retire. People sold their business in another part of the country. They're retiring down to Palm Beach, Broward, Miami-Dade, and they're not really investing in what's going on here. Now, as we see a lot of these companies, starting with Cyndx and Ultimate and the rest of them, as they've scaled up and as they've taken different financial pathways, there are angels now through those companies that are staying in the area, reinvesting in the area. And I agree, we need to make sure that once those dollars come here, they stay here and cultivate this region. And I think that that's really going to be the key as we move forward. We're seeing day by day, we're reading of different private equity firms, incubators and whatnot, that are making a beachhead down in South Florida. Again, not just Miami, even if it says Miami in the title. One of the big ones just came to Hallandale Beach. That was Broward last time I checked, but it says Miami in the title. They're coming here. They want to be here. This is where they want to set up shop and live. So we just need to make sure that we have the infrastructure, talent, and the companies in place for them.
Good point. With that, I was like to turn that over to Jim. I think you have an interesting perspective as well with the relocation and probably the one of the newer entrants into our market. Are you able to respond to that question?
Absolutely. And look, our business primarily is to help companies identify the right capital source, and irrespective of the stage. So whether it's pre-seed, seed, Series A, B, all the way up to your exit, that's what our software does. And the interesting part that the mayor just made was a lot of the money that's relocated down to South Florida when you're retiring or things like that, and family offices that are located down here. That's really the area where most seed and pre-seed is being funded today. The VC community has moved up market pretty significantly when you think about it. So you naturally have those pockets of capital that are critical for the seed formation. The key is to be able to make that connectivity between the companies and the person that sold their business in XYZ industry that really understands what that startup company is doing, so that they can not only help them with capital, but help them accelerate the business. And the more that we can do to help create that connectivity, the faster we're going to be able to accelerate these companies and get them to the Series B and C, where you can broaden out the capital base for those companies. So again, I think you have the natural starting point. I think what we need to get is the connectivity and the tissue between it. The other thing I would say is, the distance between Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and Palm Beach County is very short. So it doesn't really matter, as the mayor was saying, where the individual investor or the company is located. It's very easy for them to get connected between one another. So I think you're going to see this region naturally be viewed, as the mayor has been saying, as one natural, economic hub, as opposed to just, having the highlight name of Miami in it.
If I can just follow up one brief point there. When SoftBank announced in the news the other day that they were opening up their $100 million VC fund down in Miami, I reached out to the reporter and I said, find out if this is just a Miami thing or if this is the region. And they said it was just a Miami or Miami-Dade County thing, to which I responded, and some people publicly asked me, if you're the next Uber, Google, whatever, and you happen to be located in Broward County, just because they're saying they're a Miami thing, they're going to fund if you have what they need. It's not going to matter. I mean, they're using the name Miami the way everybody is using it, just to create and generate the buzz. But again, there should be really no difference. The PC was invented in Palm Beach County, so it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, and so I'm glad that you brought up the $100 million fund announcement. I know that our phone and emails have been off the hook with people wanting to know, how do I get into this? How do I apply? And it's created a lot of buzz. And Jim, I like what you said too about connectivity and making sure that we connect the right business with the right money. And I think that we see more of a mentorship investment model occurring rather than just an investment model, meaning that the money is the right money behind these ideas. So there's the right plan, the right people, and the right money versus the wrong opposite. And I see an interesting trend occurring there, and I'm glad that you brought that up. So Lillian, you get to close out this one. I know you were mentioned as a case study by the Vice Mayor. Your name and organization comes up very frequently as a success story, and I know that we're going to see you in the future doing some big things.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Vice Mayor. Always a big fan and in our corner and helps us tremendously. I echo the same sentiments as everybody. I come from a different place in the access to capital, as we raised in 2019. We raised $3.5 million, and we weren't able to find that money locally. And when I say find the money, you can find the money with regular investors. When you're looking, there's a stage for a startup that you need to have funding that's coming from people that have the resources to also help scale the business, that have been there and done that, and that are operators. And those people typically are in New York, SF, Boston. And what's been really amazing in the past 6 months is that you're reading the news that Founders Fund has opened up, and I echo that it's a region. When we say Miami, if we can all agree, when we say Miami, we mean the region, because it is the region. When you say Silicon Valley, a lot of it is in SF, but it could be Menlo Park, and that's really pretty much the same distance of a drive as Palm Beach to Miami. They have a better transit system, and that's something we're going to have to address sooner than later. But otherwise, it is the region. You need that region in order to have that type of population to support all the companies. But I echo what John was saying, is that we need to have the right investors that are not going to exit the companies or pull them apart, make their return and leave. And so for me, I look at VC as that they look for the IPO, and that by looking for the IPO, they're going to keep it in the ecosystem, right? Where traditionally PE comes in and they want to make the return in 3 to 5, and they may dismantle or move companies or do different things with them. The challenge that all the startups have had up until now is that South Florida has money. You look around at all the great cars we have and great homes we have, right? And boats. We have the money, but the money was from real estate. And so what was frustrating for me when I was raising our seed round was that they don't understand that how VCs understand. It's a gamble. 1 out of 100 startups are going to make it, and they're going to cover your portfolio. So don't bet the house on one company. You need to say, if I have $100,000 that I'm going to invest, or $1 million I'm going to invest, put it across 10 companies, because your chances are going to be greater on that. But the real estate investors, when you're out pitching as a startup, are looking for, well, if the market goes south, at least I'm still going to hold on to my house and I'll have something that I've invested in. It's a different mindset. And I'm super happy to say that today, that mindset is here in South Florida. When you have SoftBank with $100 million, and you have Founders Fund, and you have Lightspeed, and on and on and on, Insight Ventures, and look at the exits that we're having from Ultimate Software, largest ever private equity sale, to eBuilder, to Shipmonk, and Citrix acquiring a $2.25 billion company in Reich. We are there. It's in our control. As I'm thinking about how we're discussing on this panel, it's almost like the same thing that you have with the startup, where you have the visionary. We need a point visionary person that is going to say, this is what South Florida is going to become. There's case studies. Look what happened in Silicon Valley, right? That whole region. Where were their wins, and where were their mistakes, and how do we avoid that, right? When we talk about talent, we have some of the best colleges in the country, in the state of Florida. Let's not forget UCF. Let's not forget FSU. Let's not forget Gainesville, right? And when you look at California, LA now, Honey came from LA, $4 billion acquisition by PayPal out of an incubator, right? Dollar Shave Club out of an incubator. So we need to not only look at ourselves as a region, of course, that's what we're all very focused on here, and a lot of work we need to do, but we need to look at the state of Florida. We need $79 flights that are going to go from Gainesville and Jacksonville down to the Tri-County area. And so there's a lot of work to be done. And I think that maybe as a whole, we all should put together a committee that says, okay, how do we lead this charge, and what do we need to do to build this company? And the company is South Florida's tech. As a company, what do we need to do to execute that? So money is here now. It wasn't here. It's here now. And it's all of our collective responsibility, from every leg of the stool, from the colleges to government to bigger companies that are investing to startups, that we all develop people that are serious about building startups, and that it's not every kid gets a trophy. And that's how it used to be in the startup community in Miami, that you'd go to a 500 startup event and you go, how long have you been a startup? And they're like, oh, I've been a startup 3 years. And then you're like, oh, what's your revenue? And there's no revenue. Well, you know what? That just hurts everyone, because you're not a startup if it's 3 years and you have no revenue, unless maybe you're enterprise. So it's all of our responsibility to educate the students and say, hey, this is the path that you're taking to be a startup. This is what it requires. You're not going to sleep. You're going to have no other life than your company, but you're going to build a vision that's going to be a brand, right? And government, same way. What's all the access? How do you pave the way? And then big companies, how do they, lean in and help with, knowledge and resources? So sorry, I went a little long-winded, but I'm extremely passionate about this area. Capital is oxygen. First, show product market fit, show early product market fit. Then let's put the capital in, and let's give everyone a return. Develop the mindset, you must return your investors' money, and it has to be a win for them. We do that, we'll never have a problem with money.
Well, I'd like to nominate you as the chair of this new committee that's going to lead change in technology and so forth. I think you'd be a great voice, and you're passionate, and I love it.
I second it.
Excellent.
But I know she's busy.
All right. Voluntold. All right. Well, I appreciate that. So, Vice Mayor, I have a very specific question for you. It's a couple of questions embedded in one, but you're a huge advocate for the success of South Florida and one of the busiest people I know on Twitter. What do you believe the role of government is related for the growth of innovation in South Florida, and how can the different levels of government support this growth, and is it even realistic for all the stakeholders to collaborate as one?
Yes, I think the stakeholders all need to collaborate. There needs to be collaboration across all spectrums. To move forward, it needs to be an inclusive, everyone needs to be included. We need to be funding female, minority, whatever, all these type of companies with the idea of a return on investment. The Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance and their counterparts in Palm Beach County and Miami-Dade County set up the Tech Gateway. That's the history of that is, we were the gateway to Latin America, so let's come up, are we going to be Silicon Beach or this or that? We became the Tech Gateway. The Tech Gateway map is one of the maps that I continually post on Twitter when different companies are looking at this. And whenever I do it, I usually get 4 or 5 other people commenting, well, this company's now here, this company's now here. They're always constantly updating the maps, and it's done in collaboration with all 3 counties. We need to make sure that government the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance rolled out their permitting process to expedite permits so that when these companies build out space that they're going to eventually take, they can do it in a way that's not traditional government that takes years. I was at Xendoo's office a couple days ago and walking around. They moved to new office space, and it's our job to kind of grease the skids in a positive way so that they can get through their permitting process. They can sublease, they can lease, they can do what needs to be done. They can be nimble, because these startups need to be nimble, and we need to support these companies. And then you see they support back in return. Ultimate is one of the huge supporters of the South Florida sports system, the Miami Heat, the culture. Whenever all their employees are involved in different nonprofits throughout the community, and that's how it all works together. So they put in their end, and it's a circle. We start, we help, they help, and it all, in the end, benefits all of our mutual customers, constituents, and our people.
I'm glad that you brought up the Tech Gateway map. It's something I utilize almost daily, especially when I'm presenting to different audiences just to show what the South Florida market looks like, especially those that are not from our region. And one of the advantages that I think Broward County has is that we're in the middle of this tri-county area. We really truly can be a hub that better links this innovation ecosystem as we move forward. And I really hope that we come up with strategies that captivate on those opportunities as we move forward.
And one of the main components there is going to have to be transportation. And you're seeing that with Brightline and the East Coast, coastal links. We're going to need to make sure that people can live in Boca, Palm Beach, work in Miami, get on a train, and be able to move around. When Amazon HQ2 came down and we made the finals in South Florida, two things that stuck out. First thing is they said it was regional. Miami would never have gotten that on their own. It had to be the region of all three. And all three counties pitched in together to try and lure that down here. And that really put us on the map as far as that goes. The second thing that was a concern was transportation throughout the South Florida area. There's got to be a better way that we move people around. And that's something that we're constantly at government looking to do. Unfortunately, we don't move as fast as the private sector does, and we need to do something to fix that so that we can get people moved around the area.
Yeah, I appreciate that, the transportation challenges, and it would be interesting to see what the kind of statistics we're looking at now versus pre-COVID in terms of the number of people that were moving to Florida. The last statistic I heard, it was approximately 1,000 people a day crossing into Florida to make this their home. I don't know what the numbers are now, but it'd be really interesting to see. But we'll touch on a COVID question in a little bit before we close at the end of this hour. In some ways, we've already touched on this next question, but I'd like to expand. What are the most critical changes that are facing the South Florida startup and business ecosystem with this new national and global lens on our market? And Jim, it'd be interesting to hear your perspective on this.
Look, I think the mayor just highlighted it's making sure we have the right infrastructure to be able to support it. And it takes, years to get that in place. So you really have to anticipate where it's going to be. And whether it's, the fiber optic cables or whether it's transportation, as he was just talking about, those are all critical things, right? Being able to jump on a train and get, to Miami within an hour, like having the time, or I guess it is an hour now, but even having the time is going to be an important thing so people can go back and forth. We're opening offices both in Miami and up, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach. We're going to probably have places in each of them just so that we can address each of the markets. We already have salespeople down in Miami, but we want to have that flexibility to be able to move back and forth because that's where our clients are. So again, I think having the infrastructure to be able to support us. The other thing which was very welcoming to hear was, the willingness to work with startup companies to be able to, in a positive way, grease the skid so that we can, grow and expand and do those kinds of things. I can't tell you the number of challenges we used to face up in New York, and California was twice as bad as New York in terms of the, roadblocks that they would throw up just to try to prevent you from doing things that were positive for the community and for the workers. And we just have to be very mindful about, the regulations and things that we put in place so that, it's a win-win for the companies, a win-win for the employees and the citizens, and a win-win for the government. And all of those things can be accomplished. But again, I think it takes, a lot of forethought, like you were talking about, creating that panel where you really the government understands the issues that these companies are going to face, so that we can make it as easy as possible for them to be able to grow and flourish and realize their vision.
Great, thank you. And John, if I could have you finalize your response to this question, and then I'm going to move into a question with Lillian specifically.
I echo what Jim mentioned. I'm just going back a minute to the Tech Gateway. The tagline of live in the sun, work in the clouds, and everything about it is very powerful in that whole regionalization concept. Because to everything that we're talking about, including this question, one of the major things that you're hearing is that no matter where you're getting your talent or what you're producing or what you're doing it across Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. That is the case at UKG. That's the case everywhere. We have it's interesting, works out to almost a third of where our people live that work at UKG, quite honestly. So I just echo everything that's there, and just kind of remind that probably one of the most important things that we can do is to help this regionalization kind of become concrete and not so fragmented.
So it's interesting. I think the most common term I've heard in the last year is "you're on mute," but the second most common sentence I'm hearing these days is "live in the sun, work in the cloud." And it's interesting as you speak to people up in the Northeast, particularly today, and snow all around different individuals, that it's never been more enticing. But I think more and more people are being attracted to this idea of living in Florida for a number of different reasons. And yes, there are challenges, but there are a lot of opportunities. And I think that we're working towards those strategies to always improve upon what we're doing. Lillian, I'd like to ask you a question specifically related to Xendoo in South Florida. And I'd like to know what your most beneficial resource has been in terms of success. And is there anything else that government and corporates and ecosystem builders can do to support the startup community?
Great. Two separate questions there. So on the first question, some of you may have heard me say this before, but I say all roads lead to Melissa Medina. And the reason why that I say that is that, we were put on the map by winning Emerge in 2018. And so when you look at a family, Manny Medina, who had sold Terramark for a couple $2 billion, he stayed and he reinvested by building Emerge Americas, a conference every year that costs them a lot of time and effort, and they have a full staff to put that on every year, that attracts tech down to Miami, but also gives the startups the opportunity to see what it's like and to apply. Now, normally somebody wins not necessarily in the area, but from across the world. We were fortunate to win 2018 when people said, "Oh, you'll never win. You're a female, you're older, and you're from Broward." Now, had I known Vice Mayor Udine back then, he would have been all over them on that one, right? That from Broward, I'm not going to win. So those were fighting words for us to just make us hone our skills even more. But unless you have the right business that you're building, you're not going to win, right? You have to have something that people can resonate and see that can become a $1 billion company. So the second part of your question, what can people do? Well, we're already doing it, right? We're representing all the pieces on this call today. And it comes down to that we all have a responsibility to maximize this opportunity for South Florida as well as the state of Florida. We all have a distinct responsibility to make sure that we execute that. And so it takes four things. It takes the logistics and transportation, which I don't believe has been solved, but the conversation is happening. It takes the talent, which now with NSU and FAU and FIU, a lot of our people are from FAU, FIU, and UM. We need to get dialed into NSU. It needs having the talent. There's a piece that we haven't talked about yet today, and that is space flexibility. When you're a scaling startup, you cannot sign a 3-year lease agreement. You cannot sign a 5-year lease agreement. We need to rethink that in South Florida. Because being a seasoned entrepreneur, I knew to sublease. A lot of startups don't know to sublease, and then the space restricts them. So we need to look at that piece. How do we allow people how do we create the mindset so landlords will know that you have to give them the opportunity to get out and to continue to grow because it's better for all. And then access to capital, which is being covered now. So it's a domino effect. By winning Emerge Americas, it put us on the map for Vice Mayor to know us and for him to help us as much as he's helped us, which we greatly appreciate. And I think that's what you need, more occasions like that. You have Knight Foundation, Venture Hive, Venture Cafe, Refresh Miami. Too many to name now, and isn't that a wonderful thing? That's become too many to name the whole group of them.
So Emerge Americas is a great event. I look forward to the day that we can actually be back on the floor, and hopefully that's just around the corner. And the organization does a great job in terms of exposing opportunity and making those connections that are really important.
Yeah, John, if I may just add, it gave us the opportunity for Rise of the Rest. And we became the Rise of the Rest company, and we now have Steve Case, founder of AOL, as an investor. that all happened because Emerge America was very instrumental in bringing Rise of the Rest to our ecosystem.
That's a very important point and a great movement in its own right, and thank you for bringing that up. Jim, if we look at Cyndx, and as you continue to expand, I'm really curious as to what drives your geographic strategy, especially relocating to South Florida. I have a number of sub-questions I don't normally would probably answer or provide to you, but just in the interest of time, I think you're better to take this question the way that you would like to, because you made a huge strategic move and you've already touched on it, but maybe you can expand upon that.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, our employees are our critical asset, right? We're a software company, and COVID taught us that we could work anywhere remotely and be very, very successful doing it. And so as a result, that gave us the flexibility to really be able to look and see where we wanted to be as opposed to where we were. And we looked at Texas and we looked at South Florida. And from an attractiveness to our employees, South Florida was the most attractive. When we, raised the opportunity with people, almost a third of the employees immediately said, yes, I want to relocate. And I was surprised by that. I thought we'd have to establish it in, with 10% and then that would happen. But a much larger percentage wanted to move down immediately. My expectation is that, over the next year or so, more than 50% of them will be down in South Florida, just as a natural. And as we hire new employees and things like that, it will be in this region, because unlike New York, where you still have to work remotely and the restrictions on having people even come in, make it, impossible for you to work next to one another. At least we have the opportunity to do that here. And one of the things that the employees really wanted to be able to do was to work side by side with one another. While they could be productive remotely, they wanted to be in the same office. They wanted to collaborate. They wanted to have that relationship. And especially for the younger employees, that is a critical thing for them. And so when you started to add these things together, it became a very natural decision for us to migrate down. Then when you start to overlay the government being very open, receptive, and inviting, the more favorable tax environment, and for startup companies, the more capital you can keep in the business, the better you're going to be, because you can reinvest that and grow the business. And so it really became a very easy decision at the end of the day. What I think surprised us a little bit was the speed at which the scale of the move that would happen. And I echo the thought on, the signing the lease, a 3-year lease versus a 5-year versus so forth. We're fortunate from a capital perspective that we could make that kind of investment. But I remember 2 years ago when that was a bigger challenge for us. And we really needed to think hard about, whether we would enter that lease or not. So building that kind of flexibility for companies that move down, I think will be very, very valuable to the overall ecosystem, because it'll make it easier for companies like ours to make that decision.
And so I'm glad that you brought that up, and welcome to Florida. And we hope there's a whole trail of organizations and individuals like yourself following. I know that our center that we're building right now, one of the things that we're starting to focus on is virtual headquarters, or even virtual access, where companies don't necessarily have to build their own infrastructure, but they can do so virtually. And headquarters is one of the targeted opportunities specific to Broward County. And I think that the next evolution of that might be the virtual infrastructure, so that perception-wise you can be present without actually having to have the brick and mortar, if you will. So it'd be interesting to see where this future goes. John, I have a question for you pertaining to UKG. You've had extremely impressive growth, and the future looks very bright for the organization. You're in the news every day. Can you expand on any foreseeable challenges that impact the long-term success, and what is needed in the South Florida innovation ecosystem to support companies like UKG?
Yeah, so we think the future is bright. The challenges have been mentioned. They're actually, believe it or not too dissimilar from what you heard from Jim and from Lil, is transportation. Because as we grow and hire more and more, the regionalization and ability to get to in between the tri-counties is becoming a bigger and bigger issue, quite honestly. So I think that's an area. The other that's interesting is potentially, as I mentioned before, we had a bit of an upper hand at times with our programs at the university. So working to get talent before they left, if you will. Now that's interesting is with everyone looking at South Florida for talent, it's retaining our talent, believe it or not, because it's more competitive. But I'm okay with that, because that means that the ecosystem is healthier, and that at the end of the day, the talent is getting better, it's getting wider, it's getting more experience. So for us, that is definitely kind of a new thing, is looking at how to retain even our talent, because there's more opportunities, and that's great for everybody. So I would say that's definitely there. Transportation's been mentioned already, and the partnerships that they continue to grow that we have with Nova Southeastern, with FAU, FIU, University of Florida. The partnership between the educational components are so important. And as a member of a lot of advisory boards, trying to make sure that the education that we're giving our youth matches the needs of the community. I do think that's an area that we've made a lot of great strides, but I think there's still more to go. And quite honestly, this will be interesting. I think it's another thing post-COVID that is going to challenge a lot, is even this concept of going to universities versus online learning. And does that give us an opportunity potentially to kind of break some of the shackles of the institutional dependencies that are there for education, to modernize that practice to help us get better talent faster, and more partnerships with the ability to actually have, back to a term you used earlier, apprenticeships, as in working while learning. And so I think all of that is an opportunity, quite frankly, that we're looking to explore more and more to help us grow and to help us thrive more in South Florida.
Great, I appreciate that, and thank you for that response. I was going to pose a question that looked at the future, and 5 years from today, if we were having this exact same fireside chat, with the South Florida innovation ecosystem look the same, or will it be different? And would it be around a tech hub or something else that maybe we haven't thought about? But I think what I'm hearing already is that the conversation would be a little bit different than where we are today, and that we would see progress and probably new opportunities that we haven't thought about. And just in the last few minutes, we're getting up to the end of the hour, I did want to address the COVID pandemic environment that we're all living in. And if you could make a quick response to this, and we'll start with the Vice Mayor. The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted the world, and South Florida is absolutely no exception to this. Has the pandemic resulted in acceleration or new technology-based entrepreneurial opportunities? And if so, does this result in a need for new types of resources in our infrastructure that we currently do not have? And I'd be really interested in learning from the government perspective, specifically, what the short or longer term impacts of this might be.
I think that it's accelerated everything. I just think it's pushed so much stuff forward. Someone mentioned before about fiber optics. One of the things when we did the penny tax for transportation, which, by the way, our voters in Broward County voted to tax themselves a penny in sales tax so that they could put that more towards transportation type issues. One of the things we had in there is fiber optics through all these intersections, and to greatly expand the fiber optic network down here. And I think we're seeing now, access to high speed internet access for everybody, because that's going to be, obviously, something that's very key. And I think this is also showing us, I've said this before, but I think really now we see it. Every company really in this area is quote unquote a tech company. If you're, the cruise line, you're a tech company. You have coders and you have data people, and the technology is critically important to whatever you do. Financial services, a lot of what we're seeing now with the tech startup and growth is also happening in financial services, which is coming here. And I would say that most of those are now becoming more and more quote unquote tech companies. I mean, who's going inside their bank anymore. Almost everybody's doing everything from their, handheld device, not even their computer anymore, to get everything done. So yes, I think the pandemic is going to accelerate. I think it has accelerated. I think it's given people that were stuck in New York that came down here for 6-8 months that are saying, I'm just not going back. Whatever position, whatever job they have, they're going to try and find it down here. And I think that we have to be ready for it. And I think time will tell. Hopefully in 5 years when we have this conversation, we'll see what the foundation of our success looks like, and we'll go from there. Lil will probably be calling in from her yacht somewhere after Xendoo becomes the next unicorn. So I don't know.
So that's a good, just in the last couple of minutes that we have, that's a great segue to Lillian. What's your response to this?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. But I have another business after this business. I build technology, but maybe I'll take a few days off for some boating in between. But we still have a long way to go with Xendoo before we embark on that next venture. Agree. Look, COVID has accelerated it for everybody. But I think that also what COVID has done is at the same time it's accelerated, it's given us a unique opportunity. I'm always the glass is overflowing. It's given us a unique opportunity to take a pause, right? Now you're not running out to an event every single night. You get to take a pause and you get to really look at your life. And I think that when a lot of people looked at their lives all over America and they're in the cold, they're in the winter, they're in, New York and California being taxed with like they shouldn't be taxed. And they said, wait a second here, I got to come down to South Florida. And I think that we're seeing that. So not only has it accelerated technology, but it's also de-accelerated the human condition to be able to take a moment and to think. And I think when people take a moment and think, they realize what's important to their lives. And I think some of that is your quality of life is number one, right? So, and to just touch on that question of where we are today and where we would be in 10 years at the Fireside Chat, today we're at convergence, right? We are at a unique, unbelievable, amazing moment in time that will be historic and is historic. For many reasons, but for South Florida in the tech scene, it's convergence. And where we'll be in 10 years, we will be changed. And in this conversation we're having today and all the conversations that everybody's having right now around this, we all get to play a part of that story of what that change means. So I believe it's going to be a really positive, unbelievable change. And I would love it that when Vice Mayor becomes mayor, that he puts in some hovercraft that we can get amongst the 3 counties. So don't just go for the solo hovercraft, Michael, please. Let's get the bus hovercraft, and that's going to solve our transportation problems.
Actually, I have a call set up with a company that's doing the taxis and airplanes. Every time I tweet something, my Twitter blows up, and I have a million different startups that are looking to call and just say hello and introduce themselves. So yeah, maybe we'll do that and have hovercrafts. It's
out there. Let's be the first city that puts in hovercraft between. Yep.
So I love anything with a motor or anything with kind of power driven. So count me in on that one too. So we just have a minute or two left before we get to our final lightning round. But Jim or John, do you have anything that you wanted to add in terms of the previous question pertaining to the current pandemic?
Yeah, look, I think, as I said earlier, it gave us the opportunity to really step back and look at our company, one on the product side. And because, for the first 3 to 6 months, sales slowed down, we could really focus on the product and accelerate a lot of things and retool things, which put us in a much, much better position today. So for us, it was a real opportunity. I think the other thing that it really highlighted for a lot of companies was the capital, what is the shape of their balance sheet, and do they have the flexibility to be able to weather through things like this? And I say most companies didn't spend enough time really looking at that. If you had an event like this, would you be able to weather that storm? Did you have the flexibility, on the expense side to be able to make the adjustments you needed? And I think coming out of this, companies need to be laser focused on that part, so that they can survive it. Having the capital to be able to survive 12 to 18 months beyond, with zero revenues, most companies aren't in that kind of position, but they need to put themselves in that kind of position. So again, I think that was another big learning for us. The last was, making the changes quickly to be able to adapt to the new regulations and the new safety requirements for employees. Speed is critical during times like this. You need to make decisions, and you can't wait for events to happen. You have to make them happen. So I would say that's the last learning that we got out of this, to say, you need to move faster, and maybe you'll make a mistake, but that's okay. You'll figure it out along the way. So the faster you can move to address, events like COVID, and we're not out of it yet by any stretch. So we're going to continue to learn, but we need to be in that kind of position.
Great, thank you. John, do you have anything they'd like to close with that?
Everyone covered a lot. The only thing I would add is we're not done. And so I don't know if we know the lessons that we're going to know yet post-COVID. It's probably one thing that I would agree, being speed to market, being agile, et cetera. And the last thing I'll say is that, and this is something we really recognize as a company that's been built on its culture, this transition to being more virtual has had an interesting effect on people and on culture of companies. And so I do think that's something that's going to emerge interesting. And I think what you've seen is the companies that have been strong and have been able to make it through have stronger cultures. And so I just think this will reaffirm that companies are more, yes, very important to bring to the bottom line, capitalists completely at heart, but there is an element that drives all of these companies that we cannot forget about, and it is people that at the end of the day drive this, and their health, success, and ability to strive and grow are really key to make it through things like a global pandemic.
Great, appreciate that too. So we're at the end of our discussion, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I'd like to give you a little bit of a challenge, and if you don't have a response, that's okay too. When you think about the state of innovation in South Florida, what is one word to describe where we are now, and one word to describe where we will be in 10 years? John, do you have a response to that?
Yeah, loosely coupled now and unified in the future.
Loosely coupled and unified. All right, I love it. Jim?
I would say under-recognized and a leader. So you're under-recognized today for what you actually have. There are a number of companies that we've been working with to raise capital that no one even knew existed down here. And I think 5-10 years from now, this is really going to be one of the major hubs for innovation in the nation, period.
So under-recognized and leader. I love it. Lillian?
Convergence and changed. And we are now known for the hospitality and tourism. 10 years, we will be known for tech.
All right, convergence and change. Love that. And finally, Vice Mayor.
I would say motivated. We're motivated to make things happen. And I think 10 years from now, hopefully we're still motivated, because things always change. So I'm going to use the same word 10 years from now. We're going to need to be motivated to change as we do this, as different curveballs come our way. We're set up right. We're at the plate. The pitch is coming down the middle. Let's knock it out of the park.
All right, I love it. I love the home run, but first we need to get first, second, and third base. Right. So motivated and still motivated. I love it.
Yeah,
all right.
I'll take a bunt actually right now.
All right, you're on first. All right. So in terms of key takeaways from today's panel, my interpretation is that South Florida must collaborate as a single innovation ecosystem if we seek to be defined as a tech hub in the future. The Chinese walls between the South Florida Tri-County region must be knocked down. I think we're doing a great thing doing that already. Buzzwords and rebranding help shine a light on South Florida, but this must be backed up with infrastructure, networks, increased access to qualified talent, and increased access to funding resources. Industry, government, and academia must be more closely aligned. And South Florida has a massive opportunity to be a tech hub, but it requires a collaborative strategic action plan, and I think we now know who the committee chair will be. Infrastructure, resources, success stories, and time. This is not an overnight success, but we are well on our way. So hopefully I've summed all of that up correctly. I cannot thank our panelists enough for participating in today's event. Vice Mayor Lillian Roberts from Xendoo, John Machado from UKG, Jim McVeigh from Cyndx. Thank you very much for all that you do. You're incredible leaders, innovators, and disruptive change makers, and we welcome you back anytime. The Alan B. Levan NSU Broward Center of Innovation will open this summer, so keep your eyes posted. We'll be giving you news updates as we move along. In the meantime, we are offering scheduled virtual events, and you can view our calendar by visiting our webpage at nova.edu/innovation. You can also email us innovation@nova.edu, or you can call our hotline at 954-262-TECH. And don't forget to check us out on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And thank you for joining us today. Stay safe and healthy. And this concludes today's virtual panel. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.